excited to be with you here at this TEDx Omaha with the Call family. I'm excited to talk to you tonight about my friends. Here we have George, this is Phyllis, and Anna. What's this guy's name?
Mr. Frankie Pants.
Mr. Frankie Pants. Yeah, these are my friends, the cows. And why are they my friends? Well, because as you know, where's Nebraska? Where did I grow up? Yes, can you point it out to me? Right there. Now, that we all know this because we're from Omaha, but that may not be common knowledge to us. So to all the viewers at home, this is Nebraska. This is the holy land, the true land of the Huskers, where I grew up and met my friends, the cows. And so I have a question. What's the sound of a cow? What sound does a cow make? Let's see. Here, we'll count on three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Some people think it's moo. They might think it's ah. Do you know why? Because of stuff like this. This is a fistulated cow from the University of Nebraska's Mobile Beef Lab, and I got to meet Rudy here during my senior year of high school at an AP Spanish competition. I was in Lincoln with my friends and buddies and everyone, and they invited me onto this trailer where I stuck my arm inside of him. Ew. Can you imagine? It was like sticking your arm inside of a bowl of soup up to your shoulder, except you could feel the warm water going all around you. And as you reached around, you pulled out the food, and we put it in a bag and we sent it off to the state for testing, because they're testing feed for hay, for different types of hay for the cows. Now, does that mean that technology and science is evil for animals? Because, I mean, we put a hole in the side of a cow, like of a living being. Would you like a hole in your stomach? No. Well, I would argue actually that technology makes life better for man and beast. This here, I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but this is a Fitbit for a cow. Who here knows what a Fitbit is? I'm wearing one. A Fitbit helps us track our health and our overall wellness with things like steps, active minutes, sleep, and we've developed the technology for cows to do the same, actually even more. It's pretty incredible. So maybe not. Maybe technology isn't the worst thing in the world. This is Temple Grandin. She's an amazing woman. She actually has a TED Talk of her own, and there's a movie about her which I think we should watch at some point. But her big deal was that she saw the world through pictures. And in fact, she would sometimes get on the ground and go in through the chutes that the cows would follow on their way to be cleaned or to a slaughterhouse. And she would see the world through their eyes. In fact, this is the chute style the chute system that she designed, where she found that cows, when they walked in curves, they felt safe. And she totally revolutionized the cattle industry because of this new design that she made. And this is an example of what it looks like. All the cows are in here, and you would eventually lead them into this system where they would calmly be cleaned and be taken care of. Her mantra was, we must give animals a good life. And I would argue that technology is making that happen. So I wanted to give a couple of examples. One is Fitbit for cows. Who knows what this is called when a cow is...
Chewing.
Yeah, chewing on its cud. The scientific term for it is rumination. And what's really interesting is that a cool thing about the Fitbit for cows, when it tracks the rumination, when it's decreased on a mom-to-be cow, that means that she's likely going into heat, which means that she's likely going to have a baby. So they can track much more closely the progress of both baby and mom and help the mom cow have a better delivery. They can also track things with GPS as to where the cows are, how many steps they're taking, the overall health and wellness. It's a pretty inexpensive technology that you can put on thousands of cows and make their lives better. Another example is pre-birth dehorning. With a few lines of computer code, they can basically delete the horns from the cow's head, which is really nice. Do you know how they dehorn cows after they're born?
They cut them off just like bad people do with rhinoceros just to get the ivory.
Right. So they'll put them in a little cage, get their head stuck out, and use big clamps, kind of like bush cutters or things, and they just chop them right off. It's a really painful procedure, and it's incredibly bloody and expensive. Some cows die from it, and we can totally stop that. And so that this little baby can be born without horns and never have to deal with that procedure. Another really cool one is stud dames. So what they've been able to do is, just like they would have bulls, have lots of babies with lots of mama cows, now they can have a single mom cow who has prime genetic traits like size or health or other things. They can basically pump her up with fertility drugs and put her with a stud bull. She'll instead of releasing 1 or 2 eggs in a cycle, will release 80 to 90 to 100. All those eggs will be fertilized, and then with another drug they can safely remove those embryos, those fertilized embryos. This is called embryo transfer, and then they can ship them around the world to surrogate mothers who will have those babies and they'll be healthy and strong. Whereas the stud mom, the stud dame, will never have to have a baby. It's pretty cool. So she can have lots of healthy babies, and we're going to talk about why this is really good for mankind in a second. So other than farmers making more money, is there a positive impact of this? Yes, Anna?
It's better for the cows too, because with it's less painful and it lets them feel more secure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other thoughts? Yes.
It's so good because they won't really have to. The baby cows will be healthy after they're born.
Yeah.
Because they have this strong mama gene, right?
Good mama genes. Yeah. Great point. Great point. I want to talk a little bit about world hunger and how making technology will make life better for cows can actually make our lives better. So as you can see, this is a map, an index of what world hunger looks like. Over here in the United States, we're in a good spot. It's not so much the case in Latin America and Africa and Southeast Asia, or Southern Asia in particular, Southeast Asia. One example I wanted to give was that of Rwanda. As many of you know, Rwanda in the mid-1990s passed through a terrible genocide where millions of people were killed and millions of cows were killed. I didn't know that before. In fact, 90% of the total cattle population was killed during the short war. But this was something that the president said. She said, we want to rebuild our nation with the best materials, including genetics. And so stud dames, genetic dehorning, even technologies like Fitbit for cows are now being sold and sent at cut rates to countries like Rwanda to rebuild their cattle populations with the best genetics in the world. The United States since 1940 has quadrupled its milk and meat production levels with less than half of the population it had in 1940. So American cattle are milk machines. And so we've been selling a lot to Rwanda, and by those means, feeding a growing population. This is a growing industry. Still, there are things being figured out to make it better. But there truly is an impact that can be made. So the thing I'd like to leave you all with was actually a realization that I had as a debater in high school. We were talking about genetically modified organisms, whether that's food or meats or other things. And there's a team that was harping really hard. We need to protect the animals. We need to protect their rights and such. But if we can make their lives better and prove that there is no net harm, as we are in many cases, then in the moment that we consider their rights, we have to remember human rights. And we have to remember that there are people like you and me who don't have enough to survive. These little kids, like Anna and Allison, don't need to stay in this moment of poverty. We can bring them forward, and we can do that through technology. So man and beast really can have their lives improved, and that's an exciting future. Thank you.
Awesome.